All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at workplace safety through the eyes of a strict safety manager. Consider this your mandatory, high-stakes safety orientation, where paying attention could literally save your life. We aren't just looking at a boring list of hard hats and gloves here. We're going to deconstruct exactly how hazards are assessed, why precise gear fit is completely non-negotiable, and how strict compliance is the only thing that keeps everyone breathing at the end of a shift. So here's our strict itinerary for today's briefing. We're moving from 1. Hazards and accidents, 2. Hierarchy of controls, 3. Workspace warnings, 4. Gear selection and fit, 5. Maintenance and compliance, and finally, 6. A quick knowledge check. Let's start with Section 1, Hazards and Accidents, the harsh reality. When we look at the top 10 most common workplace accidents, the absolute #1 threat, hands down, is slips, trips, and falls. It's incredibly easy to get complacent, right? But right behind falls, we see manual handling injuries, being struck by falling objects, and injuries caused directly by inadequate PPE. Things like vehicle collisions, dangerous machinery accidents, and burns round out the whole list. Every single one of these represents a split second where a worker's environment just suddenly turned hostile.
This brilliantly illustrates how a slip and fall scenario instantly necessitates strict baseline foot and body protection. Think about the physical mechanics of a fall for a second. Gravity takes over, and your body essentially becomes a projectile. Without proper slip-resistant footwear to prevent that slide in the first place, or heavy-duty body protection to absorb the kinetic impact against concrete or steel, a simple trip becomes a career-ending injury. Your gear is literally the only barrier between your fragile anatomy and a totally unforgiving industrial surface.
And honestly, the danger just escalates when we introduce more complex environmental threats into the mix. Beyond just falls, we are regularly dealing with severe chemical hazards, like highly corrosive acids splashing during a routine degreasing operation, and electrical arc flashes that can reach thousands of degrees in a fraction of a second. These aren't risks you can just naturally dodge. They demand specific, uncompromising physical barriers, like specialized chemical-resistant face shields and flame-retardant bodysuits. Okay, Section 2, the hierarchy of controls, engineering versus PPE. Before we just throw gear at a problem, we really need a psychological shift. Let's draw a hard line right here. Engineering controls are always the preferred method because they attempt to eliminate the hazard from the environment entirely. Think of installing better ventilation or automating a piece of machinery. PPE, on the other hand, is your absolute last line of defense. If you are wearing PPE, it means the hazard is still in the room with you. It implies the danger hasn't been eliminated, and you are relying solely on a thin layer of plastic, rubber, or filter paper just to survive. Because of that immense responsibility, conducting a proper hazard assessment is a critical, mandated task for employers. They are legally obligated to evaluate the workplace, doing actual physical walkthroughs and reviewing past incident logs to figure out exactly what PPE is necessary. And while the employer generally pays for this vital equipment, assessing the needs for nuance items, like say prescription safety glasses or specialized safety shoes an employee might want to use off the clock, requires strict managerial judgment calls. We have to ensure compliance without compromising personal fit or the budget. Moving on to Section 3, Workspace Warnings, your visual environment. You absolutely must decode and respect these myriad warning signs every single day. Whether they indicate a high-noise area requiring mandatory ear protection, a laser-in-use zone where severe eye damage can happen in a literal blink, or a chemical handling area, these symbols are the universal language of survival on the floor. I really cannot state this clearly enough. These symbols are your first line of defense, long before your gear even comes into play. It really boils down to simply being safe and aware. If you intentionally ignore a sign that says face shield must be worn when operating this equipment, you are actively choosing to bypass a hazard assessment that was expertly designed to keep you intact. All right, Section 4, Gear Selection and Fit. Let's look at the toolkit. When we talk about hearing protection, it's absolutely vital to understand the physics of sound. The material of an earplug might have excellent sound attenuation properties in a testing lab, but if the fit is poor in your specific ear canal, and there's even a microscopic leak or crack, the effectiveness of the entire device is completely lost. Sound waves will exploit that tiny gap, and permanent hearing damage will happen over time. Fit is everything. So whether we mandate single-use earplugs or those heavy-duty earmuffs, the selection has to be a calculated balance. We need maximum decibel reduction, of course, but we also need enough comfort so you don't take chances by taking them off mid-shift
just because they pinch. And an uncomfortable worker is a non-compliant worker, and a non-compliant worker is a massive liability.
And the exact same rigorous selection applies to protective eyewear too. Standard safety glasses might protect against flying chips from woodworking, sure, but they are totally useless against a chemical splash, which requires full-seal goggles, or high-temperature furnace operations, which demand reflective face shields. The gear must be precisely, specifically matched to the exact hazard of your zone. Which brings us to the most intense environments of all, IDLH. That stands for immediately dangerous to life or health. We mandate specialized respiratory protection specifically for these IDLH atmospheres. If you're exposed to something like cadmium vapor or hydrogen fluoride gas, you might actually feel completely normal for hours. But those materials produce transient effects followed by a sudden fatal collapse 12 to 72 hours later. In these zones, a perfect respirator seal isn't just company policy, it's quite literally the only reason you get to go home.
That leads us right into Section 5, Maintenance and Compliance, specifically the Respirator Plan. This breakdown of the OSHA-required respirator plan proves that safety is an active, everyday discipline. It includes medical screening, continuous fit testing, and rigid maintenance. Let's look at some practical tips for daily equipment maintenance. You must visually inspect your respirator seals for micro tears before every single use. You have to clean your particulate filters according to manufacturer specs. No, you can't just wipe them on your sleeve. And you must store your gear in a dry, uncontaminated space so it doesn't degrade overnight. These are absolute legal requirements, folks, not optional suggestions.
Okay, wrapping up with Section 6, a quick knowledge check on accountability.
I want you to think carefully about this scenario from a safety manager's perspective. Should we just mandate safety glasses everywhere across the entire plant, like even in offices or hallways where there are no hazards, just to be extra safe? Well, the answer is yes, that is actually a massive mistake. Overprescribing gear completely destroys respect for the protocol. If you force workers to wear PPE when there is obviously no danger, they'll start assuming all the rules are just arbitrary. Then compliance drops dramatically when the real, life-threatening danger is actually present. Policies must be targeted, justified by the hazard assessment, and fiercely enforced.
Remember this fundamental truth. The very fact that you need personal protection implies that a hazard has not been eliminated from your workspace. We are just managing the risk, not removing it. And needing first aid? Well, that means our defenses, our assessments, and our compliance have completely failed.
I'm going to leave you with this somewhat provocative thought to challenge your daily routine. If an accident happens tomorrow and your gear fails, is it a manufacturing defect? Or is it a failure to properly inspect, fit, and respect that equipment? Ultimately, is the plastic and rubber keeping you safe, or is it your disciplined respect for compliance keeping you safe? Think about that next time you step into a hazard zone. Stay sharp.